Hey rascals, it's Nixie, and welcome to Indigo Incognito, the series where I go incognito and look at a bunch of random stuff on the internet. Today, we're going to be looking at the American Policy Roundtable, an organization which claims to be non-profit and non-partisan. Celebrating the American spirit, reaching all people with the message of true liberty. We believe in the promise of America and trying to help people rediscover the principles upon which the American promise stands. Now, the big reason I found out about this organization is they've been running ads about the Ohio abortion amendment coming in November 7th. See the language. You can read a series of questions and comments about the legal ramifications of the amendment. Understands the legal authority and the constitutional law. So we have the regular version of the law, and then their version is how they interpret it. So let's go ahead and see how they're interpreting it. Well, first we have a red flag. The word woman does not appear in this entire document. Why does that matter? Women aren't the only people who can have reproductive issues. Taking issue with this is just signaling that you don't like the existence of trans people. Or at the very least, you don't like language that includes them. The right to reproductive freedom with protections for health and safety. It says mostly for abortion providers. Okay. Has the right to make and carry out one's reproductive decisions, not limited to. Without limits, gender selection, abortion, harvesting, body chemical castration, trans surgeries on minors. Also, they have the word cloning. A lot of this stuff feels very fear-mongering. The abortionist is now protected by the Constitution regardless of the outcome of aborting a fully viable human child. Are there no human rights for the unborn? There's just a lot of problems jumping out at me. This doesn't feel nonpartisan at all. To be nonpartisan is, in my opinion, impossible, which I think when people claim it's they're nonpartisan, you end up with stuff like this. Oh, I also can see it in this document. I'm gonna take a picture of this and we'll send this in a Discord after the video and see what my friends think of it. So what do you guys think of this document and throughout all 9 months? I think the Ohio legislature will have no power to mitigate against the abuse of this language because this is the constitutional right. Thus, the people of Ohio will be silenced on this subject. I feel like a lot of this is incredibly fear-mongering and right-wing. And those are both big issues. So I just have a lot of issues with how this is written. Evidence-based standards of care, undefined. They're talking about how things are undefined. And yeah, certain things. But the fact that they're putting the fetus... Reading at this seems like a pretty fine abortion bill. I think the people's issue is that this is a pro-abortion bill. I feel like that's how people look at this. and having an issue with something because it's pro-abortion is not nonpartisan. But of course, unless of course the statistics, but another thing that they talk about is that's a church service. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to mention. They constantly talk about true liberty, and yet they're a very religious organization. And being religious in politics is the definition of bad. Religion should not be involved in politics whatsoever. Otherwise, you cannot make a religious argument for a political issue. If you try to do that, you are basically talking nonsense. Religion is a private practice. We've got a pretty nice website. Look, there it is. Jesus, his story. What does Jesus have to do with abortion? Jesus has nothing to do with abortion. And yet we're seeing these things being crisscrossed. It's very dangerous to do this. This is not nonpartisan. The public square, ivoters.com. You to know who's on your ballot? Check out ivoters.com. Not affiliated with iVoter Guide. I don't know a lot of these organizations. None of them seem left-wing or anything. Alright, so this is the main website. Order a free U.S. Constitution. Why are they giving away copies of the Constitution? You can easily just go online and look up American Constitution. And if you go past all the sponsored stuff, you can go to senate.gov and you can view for free everything in the Constitution. Everything. So why do they feel the need to allow people to view the Constitution? Oh, wait. $0? Okay, I'm not going to be as hard as this as I thought. They want your information to give you a piece of a physical copy of the Constitution, but that's fine. If it's for free, that's actually quite amendable. Even though it's unnecessary and kind of speaks to this feeling of worshiping the Constitution rather than using it, there is an understandable likingness to just liking the aesthetic of the Constitution and wanting to own one. And the fact that it doesn't seem to cost anything is nice. My only fear is, does this price go up depending on what you actually order? Nope, it says it's a free Constitution. Okay, so I can't criticize this that much because it's just a free Constitution. However, the type of what I can say is the type of organization. This seems like the type of organization to worship the Constitution. Similarly to how, because they bring religion into politics, and by doing that creates a certain type of mind, a certain worshipping of the past. That is a big no-no in politics, in my opinion. You can't worship the past. You have to use the past to make a better future. If you worship the past, you'll repeat the past mistakes. Alright, news. They have a news section. Ohio 60% supermajority. Let's see what they thought about the supermajority issue. We have a lot of anti-abortion stuff. However, it seems like they actually seem to have some morals, because they were against the supermajority proposal. people of Ohio wanted to restrict their right by placing upon the, they could have done so, may still do. The people. It is a proposal from the Ohio General Assembly. That body created by the people is now attempting to lay a heavy burden upon Ohioans, thus changing the power in the state government. Whoa! Finally, a group that it actually doesn't double down. They actually are not defending this. I'm actually kind of pleasantly surprised. That doesn't make them good people, nonetheless, but at least they have standards and morals, unlike a lot of other of the Republicans in office at Ohio. I will give you credit there. Alright, so what's the net? Events, context. Okay, now let's go to the YouTube channel, which has been running ads on a lot of videos I've been watching. APR YouTube. American Policy Round YouTube. So let's go ahead and check out their YouTube channel. Their video. What are reproductive decisions?
There's one simple hearing hack anyone can use to improve their hearing almost overnight.
This is probably a scam.
Did you know?
From 1959 until today, the birth rate in the United States has dropped in half. In one lifetime, the birth rate has fallen by 50%. If that downward trend continues, what will Ohio look like for your children and grandchildren? Babies are more than a political debate. The value we place on human life impacts us all. A public service message paid for by the American Policy Roundtable.
So, counter argument to that. Birth rates declining typically means that the country is doing better because we don't feel the need to create more babies. Birth rate decline. Why is the birth rate declining? Growing urbanization. Increased maybe, actually, maybe people are having less babies because they can't afford to. Because of capitalism. Capitalism isn't affording us to get more babies. Also, contraceptives. Bro, a lot of people, the reason the birth rate is going down is because it's becoming more socially acceptable to not have kids. It's okay for people to not have kids. Stop controlling whether or not, stop trying to imply that people should have more babies and fear-mongering about it. When it's if you want people to have more babies, maybe you should be anti-capitalist. Have you ever thought of that? All right. Hallelujah, Christ is here. Why is there nonpartisan? Why is there a church in my nonpartisan political YouTube channel? The only reason you should be talking about religion in politics is to criticize religion getting involved and influencing the decisions of people's politics. Anyways, what's Americans vote?
Matching, the sound you hear if your employer matches your 401k.
I'm not cutting out these ads because I don't want to edit these type of videos. I just do them.
In 1776, George Washington and thousands of his troops froze nearly to death at Valley Forge. In 1944, thousands of U.S. troops were fighting and freezing in the icy woods of Bastogne. Were those sacrifices, and thousands more, all made so that we could sit at home on Election Day and complain about our choices? Americans fight for liberty. Americans vote. Paid for by the American Policy Roundtable.
Well, I don't agree with the way they are using military and war events to create this glorifying narrative of we fight for freedom, when that's not the only reason that we go to war, and it's way more complicated than that. This is much better than the last ad, because this is some anti-hero stuff. Their methods are bad, but what they want, Americans voting and being more politically active, is good. So there is a shining bit of hope in this group. They're encouraging people to vote, and that's always a big thing. If you are legally able to, you should vote on everything that you can. All your state stuff, no matter whatever. If your country lets you vote, you should vote. And if your country doesn't let you vote, you should be doing something, if possible, to make it so that your country will let you vote. That's the kind of risking my life I'm talking about. Talking about protesting, the type of stuff that gets things changed. The stuff that Martin Luther King Jr. did. And the socialists, by the way. Martin Luther King Jr. is a socialist. Martin Luther King Jr. is a socialist. Socialism. I'm gonna make a political ASMR video one day, aren't I? Like Philosophy Tube. Shout out to Philosophy Tube for making one of the funniest videos I've ever watched on this platform. Anyways. So, sometimes an anti-hero, sometimes just a plain villain. Let's go ahead and look at this. Article 1.
America's missing something. And it's something we're missing that's making us more desperate every day. We're missing a key point that the founders handed us when they gave us the Constitution. That point is Article 1, the very first article of our Constitution. Now, the folks that put the Constitution together were an extraordinary group, and they spent a lot of time arguing over this thing. They could have placed any part of the new government as Article 1. They could have put the presidency there. They could have put copyright laws there, or other things. They chose, in Article 1, the legislative branch. They made Congress first.
I think Article 1 is Article 1 for a very good reason. You know, this is government for, of, and by the people.
This is actually pretty based so far. Putting the part of government that is the most directly tied to the people as your first article of the Constitution makes sense. Now, I thought this was going to be about Amendment 1, which is about freedom of speech and freedom of religion. But no, this is about Article 1, which is about the role of Congress, the group in America that most directly represents the people. And yeah, I do think that Congress needs to, that people need to vote, because everyone talks about the president and the judges these days. You barely hear people talking about Congress. Unless it's to make fun of someone like AOC or whatever. But you don't hear people talking about the role of Congress. And I think this video is actually doing something pretty good.
The American people are the board of directors of this great nation.
Article 1 does say it gives us the powers, and it makes the legislative body a very important body, especially the House of Representatives. Think about the House of Representatives elected every 2 years. They have to represent the people.
not Article 2 or 3. They talked about the legislative branch in Article 1. And that's why, I always tell folks, you think about the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment is pretty darn important. That's why they put it right next to the First.
We've really got...
Why is he talking about the Second Amendment? That feels like a review taken out of context. Like, he said a lot of stuff and they cut a lot of it out. He might have been a gun nut, I don't know, and not fitting the narrative of this video.
and ourselves out of order. So the idea behind Article 1 is to help us come back to first principles. The exciting thing is that the idea of restoring a constitutional Congress would fix so many problems that we have in our country right now.
Restoring a constitutional Congress. Rules, laws, and even articles only work if they apply to everyone. If they're talking about... I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but if they're talking about the abuse of certain members of Congress not following the people's wishes, that makes sense.
I've dealt with legislation for almost 30 years, and we've elected presidents and governors. They come and go, but at the end of the day, they all have to deal with the legislative branch, so that's where the solution lies.
I think those people in Congress...
I feel like I need to be saying more. If I watch videos this long, I'm not going to watch the rest of this because I don't have a face cam and I don't want to just steal their content. I guess the best way to handle it would actually just be editing.
Must understand the people they represent.
But
at both parties, they and the people must understand the same truth. And that truth is the Declaration and the Constitution of the United States.
Since the end of World War II, that's back to 1945, the United States has seen 13 presidents in 12 different administrations. The Democrats have won the White House 7 times since 1945. The Republicans 5 times, so that's almost an even split. The United States House of Representatives has been controlled by Democrats.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. People are saying that it's not partisan enough. Democrats have too much control in the United States House of Representatives. Uh-oh. They're building a narrative here all of a sudden.
For 52 years, since the end of World War II. Republicans have held a majority in the House for only 12 years. Since Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1945, the U.S. Senate has been in Democrat control for 47 years. Republicans have been the majority in the Senate for 20 years. In the past 67 years, every single Democrat president has worked with a Congress controlled by his own Democrat Party for at least a portion of his term. In the past 67 years, the Republicans, who've won the White House almost half the time, but they've controlled the Congress for only 1/2 of one presidential administration.
They're spinning a narrative here. These are probably true statistics, but they're basically saying that it's the Democrats' fault things aren't getting done in Congress because the Democratic Congress is holding back. Why shouldn't but didn't you say it was all important in the Congress, not in the president? Shouldn't the Congress be the people with the most direct, since they have the most direct contact with the people, shouldn't they have the, well, no, it's a trio of power. What am I saying? But like, based off of your arguments, they're the most important of the three to our democracy. So, doesn't that say something that the people are more likely, the people of America are more likely to put Democrats in than Republicans? Isn't that the people's will? Doesn't that show that America is a more democratic nation than a Republican nation? And yet you seem to be taking an issue with that.
So what's the point? It's not political parties. The Roundtable is a fiercely independent organization.
fiercely independent, they say, making Republican point after Republican point after Republican point after Republican point.
Organization. We hold the same position on political parties as George Washington and John Adams.
People who are far more conservative than democratic. You're worshiping the past, and the past is generally more conservative than progressive. They owned slaves. They had some good ideas, but they also owned slaves. You have to look at the full person.
We think political parties divide us, and they're all dangerous to the Republic.
Political parties are dangerous, they say, and yet they continuously say stuff. This is the centrist problem, where if you point fingers at a side that's saying kill all black people, and a side that's saying don't do that, and say why can't we all get along? Obviously that's not exactly what's happening here, but that's what happens when you're a centrist. You give equal ground to two groups of people who don't deserve equal ground. And even then, the Democrats aren't what we need either. We don't have a party in America that's giving us what we need. We have social democracy, and that's the closest thing. Very few parties in any country are giving the people what they need, and that's taking down capitalism. Because capitalism was the solution to feudalism, but capitalism has new problems, so capitalism has to be taken down by something. And right now, socialism is looking like our best bet. But America is a proudly capitalist nation, and there's a whole world trade economy, and a lot of people will lose a lot of power if capitalism falls. So they're going to talk about capitalism a lot. And defend it when it doesn't deserve that defense.
The point of this history lesson is that it proves that Congress, not the White House, actually controls public policy. Presidents come and go, but Congress lasts a lifetime.
But is that actually true? In theory, yes, but the thing is, presidents aren't elected like Congress officials. They're elected through the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a stupid system that puts more emphasis on states than on the actual population. It's bad, and it doesn't reflect to the people. The last two times Republicans won office, that's not what the people wanted. And those Republicans, especially Donald Trump, put in a lot of policies. And you see Democrats aren't willing to play as dirty as Republicans. It's like a gear where Democrats are holding the gear still and Republicans are actually turning the gear. Even though, if what you're saying is true, Democrats have been able to work with other Democrats more than Republicans have been able to work with other Republicans. From what we've seen, Republicans are a lot more efficient than Democrats. They do more. Democrats don't do enough. They maintain the status quo. They are actually centrists.
The question is, do you have a seat at the table?
No. Not directly. But obviously we can't have a direct democracy because there's too many people. Too many people. But we can have political critique and open and education so that everyone is able to point out when the people we put in power don't do what they're supposed to do.
When Congress is in session, is there someone there representing your concerns?
Yeah, because Congress, as long as people are more educated, that is what's happening. There just happens to be more Democrats because Democrats make more sense than Republicans. You guys are, excuse my French, you guys are bitching and moaning about the fact that there isn't an equal amount of Democrats and Republicans and that thing. Or am I just making that narrative? I actually might be just making that narrative. That's entirely possible. But you do seem to be very concerned about how partisan the Congress and Senate are compared to the presidents. You guys have this ideal world in which Democrats work with Democrats and Republicans work with Republicans, and then things get done. But, my friend, if that was the case, then the people would vote for that. But that's not what the people are voting for. The people are voting for Democrats. The only reason Republicans are ever getting in power, at least at a federal level, is because of broken systems like the Electoral College. Your own argument goes against the point you're making. And I think I'm going to end it here. I think I've made enough points. All right, what did you guys think? What's your opinion on the things we discussed here? Would you support the American Roundtable? If you do, I probably am going to argue with you in the comments, but I want people to be honest. People should be. I'm not going to delete your comment just because I disagree with it. I want people to debate at me and tell me why I'm wrong. Hey, I'd love to get into a private chat with someone and just record it, no editing, and we can just have a discussion. So yeah, have fun. Of course. Then again, if I think your opinions are so bad that they're doing more harm than good to watch people debate, then there's no point in me debating you. Sorry, but some people, there are people who have some of these sentiments that are far worse than the American Policy Roundtable that just agree on some things with them. Anyways, see you later, rascals. Nixie out.